You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
Highly caffeinated, typically vindicated, often imitated, and never duplicated. This is the Hollownet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway, and the new conservative resistance begins right here, right now, with you. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. We're going to jump right into it here with the Hollownet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network for today, the 26th of August in the year of our Lord 2018. It's 4 p.m. local time, and we need to talk about the vacancy of the office of the late Senator John S. McCain, among other things. We're going to get to it all here at the Hollownet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the Hollownet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Yes, indeed, that's right, folks. We are live here on the Hollownet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. And the latest breaking news in for the day. Yesterday, Senator John McCain tragically passed away at the age of 81 in his Cornville, Arizona home. I know typically it's referred to by a different name, but it's located up in Cornville, Arizona. So people who live here know where that is. It's the middle of nowhere, folks. It's north of the I-17. And we're not going to get into a long, drawn-out eulogizing of, Senator McCain. I'm pretty sure that's actually going to be left up to former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama, according to most news outlets. But there is so much more to unpack, and there are such wider implications for the state of Arizona and for the U.S. as a whole. The very balance of power in the Senate is going to be entirely dependent upon the next few days' happenings. And I want to direct you back to thehollownet.com. If you haven't been to thehollownet.com, that's where you can find all my written work as well as this podcast. You can find us on facebook.com/Hollownet, tweet at thehollownet, find us on iTunes, YouTube, TuneIn, BitChute, iHeartRadio, where all great podcasts and political discourse are found. But I want to direct you to a story there on thehollownet.com titled, "In the Wake of Senator John McCain's Tragic Passing, Here's What Governor Ducey Should Do." Now, I break down the constitutional quandary at play here, and this is, truth be told, the first instance of a senatorial vacancy being needing to be filled by an Arizona governor, so this is a historic situation. And I present a rather unusual solution. I go on to say here, based upon the statute of the Arizona Constitution, there is no set time frame in which Governor Doug Ducey is required to act in order to fill this vacancy. So hypothetically speaking, should Governor Ducey choose to wait until after the August 28th primary results are tabulated, he could then set the stage for giving a truly appropriate tribute to the late Senator John McCain by indefatigably uniting his party. That's right, he can take the tragic passing of Senator McCain and create an opportunity to unite the Republican Party in Arizona in a way that it hasn't been in decades. Heal the rift between the far right in the party and the more establishment center, represented by, respectively, Kelly Ward and Martha McSally. You can heal that rift very, very simply by appointing the runner-up of this election to the vacant Senate seat. So I'll give you a hypothetical here. Hypothetical situation. Let's say that Kelly Ward wins the election. Not entirely outside of realism. I mean, this could definitely happen. So let's say Kelly Ward wins this senatorial election. this primary and faces off against Kyrsten Sinema in November. That being the case, Martha McSally could be appointed to fill the gap of Senator John McCain. In this, we would heal the rift in the Republican Party and be able to present a united front for that general election come November. And the cherry on the cake would be if the appropriate appointee were to then address his or her constituents, his or her supporters, with the message, we must unite and galvanize behind my opponent as they seek to defeat Kyrsten Sinema. This act of unification, this act of consolidating the power, would make the Republican Party in Arizona a juggernaut. There's a realistic threat right now of Arizona becoming a purple state. This is a thing that exists. It's unfortunate. Tucson has a lot of clout, and we've seen people starting to drift to the left in Phoenix and also in Scottsdale, typically the more populous college towns. This is a fantastic opportunity if Governor Ducey is shrewd enough to take the opportunity to unite the party. Now, according to the Arizona Republic and Politico, the most likely appointee is Cindy McCain. Cindy Hensley McCain, if you're familiar with Arizona's creme de la creme and extremely old money. Mrs. McCain, the widow of Senator John McCain, now heiress to the Hensley beer distribution fortune, and a true power behind the powers here in Arizona. Now, all likelihood is that Cindy McCain will be appointed to serve out the rest of her husband's term. But I feel this is a wasted opportunity. So if you feel the same way I do, check out that story. It's on the Hollownet.com. It's entitled In the Wake of Senator John McCain's tragic passing. This is what here's what Governor Ducey should do. That's on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Hollownet. Also find it on Twitter @ the Hollownet. Make sure you check that out and urge Governor Ducey to make this a purposeful appointment, make it a meaningful appointment, an appointment that can actually bring the Republican Party together. The disparate members and wings of the party can be united. And I think it would be the ultimate maverick statement, and probably one of the best ways to cement the memory of Senator John McCain, because whether you like him or not, whether you loved him or hated him, he had a long career of representing the state and of serving this country, whether you agreed with him. And for the record, I didn't. Last time I agreed with John McCain was in the year 2000. I think I was a freshman. And it was bad. It was bad. The guy attempted to run for president twice, failed twice, and as a result, in 2004, we wound up with President Barack Obama. And that's part of the legacy that he left behind. But everybody's going to wax poetical about the legacy of John McCain, the effects that he had on the American body politic. That's not what we're going to do here. What I'm going to do chiefly is point out a way that the people of Arizona can be better represented and make that choice this August the 28th. So in 2 days, we have our primary here in the state of Arizona. I've already voted. I hope you get out there and vote too. It's a very, very tight race right now between Dr. Kelly Ward, Martha McSally, and also former Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Less so with Joe Arpaio. I think he's trailing behind in the polls quite a bit. But I think this is a golden opportunity for Doug Ducey to be a great uniter among Arizona conservatives. And I hope that he sees it that way. So, what we're going to do real quick, we're going to do a fast little pivot here just to address the story of the day. Go to Fox. Tragedy is struck in Jacksonville Landing, Jacksonville, Florida. There's been a mass shooting there, killing at least 4. Sources have said gunfire could be heard at a gaming tournament. Apparently, 4 people dead, 11 others were treated after a mass shooting on Sunday in downtown Jacksonville during a gaming event at a popular shopping center filled with bars and restaurants, law enforcement sources said. Gunfire was around 1 p.m. at a video gaming event held there, the Madden NFL Championship Series. So, what does that say? I mean, Madden? Of all the things, Madden. I mean, I know it gets kind of competitive, but even I'm a little bit gobsmacked about this. A Madden tournament gets shot up in Florida. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. It's something I would never... It's one of those things where you go, that's not a headline I'm likely to read. But there it is. There it is, plain as day. Anybody to see. A shooting at a Madden tournament now. So it's getting a little weird out there. Make sure we're safe in our public spaces. Keep your head on a swivel. We have to look out for each other. We really do. Even when we're at our most vulnerable. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go to a even larger story that I put out on thehollownet.com about 2 nights ago. It's getting a lot of traction, so I wanted to make sure we address it. And that story is that we're being driven further and further to Trumpism every day. And I can feel it, and I'm betting you can too. So we're going to address that when we come back. You're listening to the Hollownet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. This is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the Hollownet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on Patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the Hollownet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/thehollownet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the Hollownet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial, constitutional, conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the Hollownet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the Hollownet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages. I spoke to you briefly about a poll there in the Patreon ad. I wanted to make sure I let you know that we actually do have a poll up right now for the general public, not just patrons on Patreon, where you can vote over my birthday, which I took the day off from the show to celebrate. 32, yay! 32, one of those birthdays that means nothing, really. Anyway, I got two great books by Dinesh D'Souza. I got Death of a Nation and The Big Lie. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear which one you want me to read and analyze first. I will start reading it, and as quick as I can, and as detailed as I can, because I really want to absorb it and be able to speak intelligently about it. But we have the Death of a Nation and The Big Lie: Exposing Nazi Roots, both by Dinesh D'Souza. So you can vote either on Facebook.com/Hollownet, or you can vote on Twitter. That's Twitter.com/TheHollownet. And one day left on the vote, so you go ahead and vote there now. Which one you want me to explore more deeply? I will tell you right now. The prevailing votes are for The Big Lie. So we are going to see where that leads us to. Yeah. So if you want to kind of direct how the show works, I think I want to do more audience participation stuff like that. So two Dinesh D'Souza books to choose from. Both I'm really excited to read, actually. So check that out. That's Facebook.com/Hollownet and Twitter.com/TheHollownet. Now, going back to the Hollownet.com, we're being driven further to Trumpism every day. I can feel it. You can check this out at the Hollownet.com. And the reason that I got started on this topic, and it's kind of funny, I've been slacking. Been slacking on my writing. I'm pretty good about getting the podcast up every week, but I've been really slacking on my writing. So I kind of made a commitment to myself that I want to try to put at least one good opinion piece out per day. One good editorial opinion piece or op-ed. This is me kind of playing in the op-ed format, and it all started with this really, trying not to sound insulting, but God, it's difficult. This really interesting piece by Damon Linker of The Week. So I'll pull that up for you real quick here. Link's embedded in the paragraph if you want to check it out. He said, "The lesson we refuse to learn about Republican voters." And this was published in The Week, last week, actually. And I say, if you would like a lesson as to how and why conservatives in America are being driven further and further to President Trump with each passing news cycle, look no further than Damon Linker's latest farce from The Week. Linker's opinion piece has the quixotic and utterly unique distinction of being both salient and completely tone-deaf, of acknowledging many truths of our age applicable across the political spectrum, but willfully and knowingly refusing to see the same truths in the mirror. So this is where I had to go here, and I included a lot of bits from his article as inset quotes. I'm not being lazy. You got to actually see it, and I didn't want to make you read the whole damn thing. But he starts giving you points that sound good, that you're kind of nodding along to. A surprisingly large number of supposedly knowledgeable and sophisticated analysts have learned nothing from the tumult and churn of the past 3 years of American politics. Okay, that's reasonable, isn't it? So then he goes on and says, yes, nearly a half-century ago, Richard Nixon was driven from office by evidence of criminality. But as we've seen over and over again since Trump burst onto the scene, we now live in a completely different political world, one in which those old rules and expectations simply don't apply. Okay, I'll agree with you on that. The old rules really don't apply anymore. We've learned that. Then he says, this isn't just because Trump is a uniquely effective demagogue, though he is. It's also because the bulk of Republican voters, get this, simply do not reside in the same moral and epistemological world as the rest of the country, including its centrist establishment. Hang on a minute. Hang on just a damn minute. This guy is saying that Republicans do not exist in the same moral and epistemological world. In other words, we no longer share the same morality as the rest of the country. And his argument would seem to be that the morality of the left is superior. Stay with me now. He continues, these Republicans don't believe or trust anything they read in the mainstream media, or anything a Democrat or Republican critic of the president says. Of course they don't. Of course they don't. We have been taught repeatedly over the course of 8 years of an Obama presidency that the mainstream media and the Democratic Party are completely full of... Everything they print is just complete and total bull. Okay? He goes on to say, they have no interest in or respect for high-minded statements of principle about, say, the rule of law that purport to transcend partisanship. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you absolutely out of your damn mind? We're talking about people on the left who fully support sanctuary cities, where they totally flout the rule of law. Look at San Francisco. Now the filth and blight of San Francisco has been made manifest by the necessity for teams of men and women to clean the human feces off of the streets. You could be a human pooper scooper in San Francisco because it's gotten that damn bad. So, a lot of all caps in this written piece, so I apologize in advance, because maybe it comes across a little bit better when I'm actually talking about it like this, because you actually get the volume and the intensity of my voice when I say, wait, what? This guy is seriously asserting that Trump supporters are devoid of respect for and interest in high-minded sentiments of principle about the rule of law? As opposed to what? The far-left establishment's unending lust for the votes of illegal immigrants who are, by definition, criminals? Wrap your mind around that. It's a little bit like wrapping your Ferrari around a tree. Now, all of this culminates in the outright defiant criminality of all these sanctuary cities and even whole states, looking at you, California, choosing to flout reams of decades-old immigration law, refusing to work with the law as written. So my first counterpoint here. I am not a chest-thumping Trump supporter. When I feel the president is doing something good, I usually praise him. When I feel the president is doing something stupid, not so much. And I've been fairly consistent in this, calling out the president when I think he does something stupid, calling out the half measures when I think they're not enough, tax plan. So I am not a diehard, jump over the cliff because he says to, Trumper. Nor am I a never Trumper. I think Ben Shapiro coined the phrase, the sometimes Trumper. And I think Shapiro's got a good lock on it. Ben Shapiro does not have a personal liking for the President of the United States on several levels. If you want to hear why, listen to Ben Shapiro. But, to digress, I fit in neither category here. And I'm still pissed off about this article. Because you're painting with such a broad brush. You're saying anybody who has supported the President, now or in the past, are you now or have you ever been a Trumper? It's coming, wait. Just wait. He's painting everybody with such a broad brush. And there apparently, according to Mr. Linker, is absolutely no nuance in the pantheon, the spectrum of people who support the president. I got news for you, buddy. There's a hell of a lot of nuance. You want to see nuance? Take a look at a Republican primary for about 2 minutes. You'll see some freaking nuance. Trust me. You'll see everything from the absolute bullheaded, hardline, absolutist conservative all the way to a centerline establishment candidate who bends like a reed in the wind and goes wherever the wind is blowing just so they can keep their seat. It goes the whole gamut of people who support the president at one point or another. And they may not all support the president at the same time. I didn't jump on the Trump train for a good long while, and it was, how shall I say, under a state of extreme duress. I was a person who voted for President Trump because I couldn't bring myself to vote for anybody else or to create a situation which would allow Hillary Clinton to become president. You see, I am a bit of a realist in that respect, and that gives me problems with third parties. because I haven't seen a third party that is realistic yet. So you have to go for the most conservative and the most electable. Most conservative first, followed by the most electable. And President Trump was the most electable, who was not Hillary Clinton. And, you know, I have to go to bed with that decision. I have to fall asleep with that decision every day. Every Trump voter does. Just the same as every Obama voter who was on the middle of the road but couldn't bring themselves to vote for Mitt Romney had to do it. We make these political choices and we have to live with them. I digress, though. Back to my point. The second counterpoint is for somebody who is content to point out the hypocrisy of others. I'll get to it. Damon seems rather eager to willfully ignore the simple truth that if Trump supporters are rushing to defend a man who promised to finally stand up for them, it's largely due to the utter shellacking they took at the hands of the most lawless and brazenly corrupt president in recent memory. President Barack Obama was shockingly corrupt, staggeringly corrupt, and the media was deafeningly silent during the entire 8 years of the administration. At least the mainstream media, leftist media, was. Benghazi, Fast and Furious, Solyndra, the list goes on. He goes on to say, what these Republicans care about is prevailing against their opponents, period. Accusing these GOP voters of double standards is besides the point. It's true that if any Democratic president were accused of even 1/10 of the charges swirling around Trump, pause. Obama was accused of way more than President Trump has been so far. Way more. He says the Republicans would be calling for blood. But what does it prove to point this out? That Republicans are hypocrites? Sure they are. Proudly. They hate it when their enemies break norms and laws, and they love it when their teammates do. The same thing. It's the mindset of someone willing to fight dirty. That's what they think it takes to win. So my respectful riposte to this is that not only was the last Democratic president accused of far more egregious charges, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, and had far more direct evidence of collusion with Russia. Tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility after the election. This is one of my favorite hits.
My last election. Yeah, and after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and I stand with him.
This is my last election. After this election, I have much more flexibility. I understand. I will transmit this information to Vladimir. Okay, so President Obama with a bit more evidence of collusion with Russia than almost 2 years of constant investigation and research from the Comey FBI and the Mueller investigation have ever been able to drum up. I found it in 6 seconds on YouTube. Good on ya. Anyway. Republicans did indeed call figuratively for blood when this happened. I know I did. I'll give you that. But never in the entirety of the Obama administration did mainstream Republican politicians call for the public confrontation and harassment of members of the administration. Not even once, full stop. Yeah, oops, paging Rep. Maxine Waters. Go to Fox News. Watchdogs Maxine Waters inciting mob violence presses an ethics complaint. Yeah. As she said, quote, when you're out there inciting mob violence against sitting Trump members, that doesn't obviously reflect... Oh, wait, hang on, sorry, that's not her quote. Hold on. That's Judicial Watch Tom Fitton told Fox and Friends. Okay, here we go. She says, if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them that they are not welcome anywhere anymore. Anywhere. Waters said last month. I'm going to break that down. If you see anybody from the cabinet in a restaurant, department store, or at a gasoline station, number one, who the hell calls it a gasoline station? It's a gas station. I've heard service station. I've heard, just saying the name of the station, like a Circle K. Nobody calls it a gasoline station. What are you from, the 30s? Anyway. You get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them. This is literally inciting a mob. Literally. This is not me being your classic hyperbole-laced talking head. No, this is literally inciting a mob. And you tell them they are not welcome anymore anywhere. Okay, so question. If you're not welcome anymore anywhere, then what are you? If you're not welcome anymore anywhere, where does that leave you to go? Is this insinuating that these people are not welcome on the planet? Among the living? That they should be exiled from the country, perhaps? Either way, a bit shocking, coming from a woman who was once described as a front-runner for the DNC chair. Yeah, really. So back to the point I was making. Never have I seen such utter tone deafness combined with selective memory loss and myopia. If, and it's a damn big if, Americans on the right have been beaten and berated long enough to reach exhaustedly for a strong hand to defend them, it's only because the left taught us to value the mindset of someone willing to fight dirty. Think about your Saul Alinsky rules for radicals, folks. We have been taught with the repeated and gentle caress of a 2x4 to the cranium, that this is clearly what the Democratic Party and the progressive socialist left employs to win, and that, unfortunately, distressingly, and shamefully, it is effective. I don't abide it, I don't endorse it, I never will. But failing to acknowledge or understand it is folly of the highest order. And the greatest shame of all is failing to recognize that this behavior was learned the same way it has always been learned throughout our history, by pushing a good people too far. So we are being driven further into Trumpism every day. I can feel it. Can you?
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the Hollownet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. You're listening to the Hollownet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Wanted to welcome to the show one of our listeners, Daniel. Daniel's complained that the bass is a little bit loud, and of course, Amy letting me know that none of the ads or clips are playing. When I repost this on YouTube and on BitChute, I will make sure to put those back in post. Dear God, I need a producer. I mean, my attention span is short enough as is, but trying to make sure that all my feeds are going into the live feed plus the podcast feed. I'm now hiring at the salary of absolutely nothing because I'm broke. Producer. So yeah, it's kind of like an internship except worse. So, anywho, I want to come back to that story. In the wake of Senator John McCain's tragic passing, here's what Governor Ducey should do. Because I put this out on Facebook into my native Arizona, and a bunch of people made sure to kick in their opinions, and I really do appreciate it. So I had told him I'm going to give him a shout out here on the show. But yeah, Daniel made a fantastic post here. He said, one note. The original intent of the Constitution's authors was that senators would represent states, not the people as a collective. Things worked much better for state sovereignty before the 17th Amendment's collectivist influence. And you got to remember, guys, 17th Amendment, when did that come about? Woodrow Wilson. So conservatives, it seems, should be happy at the governor, or better, the legislature, appointing a replacement for McCain. I cannot possibly agree more. I'm pretty happy with the notion that the governor goes ahead and makes an appointment there, but what I would get to here is that the strategic long ball approach, the way he could potentially work this to unite the party, I think the recommendation of picking the runner-up for the primary is a solid move to unite the party, to close ranks, and defend ourselves against the onslaught of Kyrsten Sinema and the Arizona Democrats. I think that's a good move here, but I do thoroughly agree. I feel better still, as you said here, the legislature should actually appoint the successor to John McCain, because that is in more fitting with the original Constitution as our founding fathers intended. The Senate was always intended to defend the sovereignty of the states, and the House was always intended to represent the people directly. But I'm afraid that in the current framework, the current laws that we have, this intent has been lost. I would love to see it return, because I think representation of the state government level at that multi-cameral level is important. Because when you think about it, a state-appointed senator does still represent the people. It's just through layers as to prevent the possibility of corruption of their thoughts. So that is something to think on here. Should we look at a return to the pre-17th Amendment manner of electing senators? Should they be elected by our state legislatures? Not a bad thought at all. Thank you, Daniel, for going ahead and giving us that. Also wanted to let you know, you can follow the Hollownet on Facebook. I also repost in about 20 or 30 or so political groups all throughout the state of Arizona. Most recently joined Corralling Conservative Commentary. Ron brought me over to there. It's a solid group, small group, but really solid. If you're interested in it, you can find that on Facebook. So I recommend checking that out as well. And I've gotten just so many great comments on this post. So please do keep them coming wherever you can find that article. You can find it on the Hollownet.com, of course, but you can find it on Facebook, several different places. And I am urging people to contact Doug Ducey, contact the governor of Arizona. Let your voice be heard. If you want him to appoint Joe Arpaio, I can't blame you, but I won't do it because I disagree with Sheriff Joe on a couple of policy points, and I just don't know if he's got it in him to serve in the Senate. If you feel that Kelly Ward or Martha McSally is the best bet, then bring this up to him. Show him this piece. Show him this article and say, I think Matt's got it right. And we should have the runner-up be appointed to that senatorial seat. So make sure you check that out again. That's facebook.com/Hollownet. You can find it on the Hollownet.com as well. So a lot of people right now, are throwing around a lot of anti-McCain stuff. And, that's your God-given right to do. It's something I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do it because he's dead. He's dead, Jim. He's dead. He's gone. I don't like speaking ill of the dead. Ever. The man served his country in the military. The man served his country in the Senate. Whether or not I agree with the manner in which he did either is irrelevant. I don't have the right to besmirch his memory because it fits my political leanings. You do what you do. I'm going to do what I do. I'm not going to get involved in any of that crap. I will tell you that first and foremost right now. People have a lot of concerns about Cindy McCain potentially becoming the senator, for the state of Arizona. One such concern is tracing back its roots to a New Times article, which refers to, some possible issues they may have had in the past surrounding addiction. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that until I have better proof than the New Times. I always look at all sources. I always try to go to an original source. That's why for this story about John McCain's tragic passing and how the governor can act, my original source is the Arizona Constitution. I actually pull the text straight from the Arizona Constitution before I make my analysis here. I went ahead and I contacted an attorney friend of the show, Alden Yakko, who is not a constitutional attorney, by the way, but he was able to point me in the right direction to reach out to some people. And I did do my homework on this, and I find it to be statutorily appropriate that the governor can choose to make this appointment when he feels best. I don't believe he has a hard cutoff on when he has to make that appointment. So, by the way, if you haven't heard of him before, check out YakkoLaw.com, YAKO, that's Alden Yakko. He's out in Scottsdale. Great friend of the program, an expert on the Middle East, a constitutional scholar. So check that out. That's YakkoLaw.com. Now, that we've come back from the break, there have been a couple of new developments out there in the world that literally came up as I'm doing my show prep, like less than 30 minutes before the show began, so I don't have a lot written for it, but I still want to touch on them. The Hill, actually tying back to my previous story about being pushed toward Trumpism, The Hill broke down the definition of Trumpism, and this is all the way back in 2016. They say the 4 characteristics of Trumpism, and they lay them out as celebrity, nativism, the outsider, and populism. Now, nativism and populism are often confused for the same thing, but it's a movement that reaches back to the mid-19th century know-nothing agitation and short-lived American party that combined an anti-immigrant sentiment with conspiracy theories about foreigners. Following the same tradition, Trumpism first emerged as part of the birther movement, while it was already debunked. the whole concept of being strongly anti-immigration was born around that time. And the president has rode that as a staple of his campaign. And that led to the Make America Great Again. So there actually is a good bit of history behind that. The outsider, anti-establishment politicians are very popular. We look for the ordinary citizen who can come and help us. So people favor the unusual position of the billionaire president because they feel he is less likely to be swayed. He can't really be touched. It's hard to bribe a man that has billions. Then you have populism, and that is what was referred to as an anti-intellectual, conspiracy-minded, alienated segment, the type of people that back third-party candidates like Ross Perot and George Wallace or Joseph McCarthy, and it embodies a particular kind of American populism composed of a mishmash of patriotism, economic nationalism, with a vague commitment to the middle class, and an aggressive but indefinite foreign policy. So, like all populists, there's a rhetoric of a certain amount of resentment there that we are pushing back against what the country has become. And I think that says it all. Going back to my previous piece, there's a reason that President Trump is President Trump, and there's a reason why people on the right are being pushed more and more into the Trumpism camp. It's because we've had our tails kicked for the last 10 years. And we didn't feel like there was any end in sight. And President Trump reached his hand out to that movement and said, I will help you, and I will protect you, and I will keep Hillary Clinton away. And I will push back against the left. And that was very powerfully appealing. And as we move now through 2018, the harder the left pushes against the president, and the more they threaten impeachment, the further they are pushing people on the right into Trumpism. That's a fact of life. Now, before we close out the show, there's been a recent bombshell development regarding Archbishop, former Cardinal McCarrick. A letter has come out from a former ambassador to the Pope that is calling for Pope Francis to resign because he covered up Cardinal McCarrick's sex abuse scandal. This is only 2 hours old. This is on the Blaze. Terry Webster. Cardinal McCarrick resigned from the College of Cardinals in June amid sex abuse allegations. The college advises the Pope on governance of the Catholic Church and elects a successor if the Pope dies or resigns. In an 11-page statement dated August 22, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano writes that Pope Benedict imposed canonical sanctions on Cardinal McCarrick between 2009 and 10 to forbid him from traveling, celebrating Mass, or participating in public. McCarrick was relegated to a life of prayer and penance, according to the statement. Vigano added that Pope Francis later lifted these sanctions and made Cardinal McCarrick a close personal advisor. Vigano states that he came forward because bishops must have the courage to tear down the culture of secrecy and publicity and publicly confess the truths we have kept hidden. His letter concludes with a call for Pope Francis's resignation. It appears that in the wake of all this catastrophic uncovering of the deep-seated corruption and cover-up of these sex crimes within the Catholic Church, it looks like we're seeing the implosion of the Roman Catholic Church in real time. That's something I never thought I would see in my entire life. I'm not even Catholic. I'm a Protestant, guys. And I never thought we would see something like this, where we could not only have seen, everybody said the resignation of Pope Benedict was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It never happens. Hadn't happened in like 1,000 years of Pope stepping down. Now, could we see two? Could we see one Pope step down due to his age and due to his feeling like he can't serve well? Because that's mainly what motivated Pope Benedict. He didn't feel that he was the right Pope. He felt he was too old and that, he had done all he could for the Church. And now you have a younger and more vigorous Pope Francis who is being urged to resign due to his impropriety. I mean, who's ever heard of a Pope being asked to resign in shame? I mean, it boggles the mind We are living in strange times. Strange times. Presidents of the United States being attacked on all sides, accused of collaboration with Russia, being brought on charges of corruption because, well, he hasn't been brought on charges yet, but several associates brought on charges because he paid off women who he apparently had affairs with, which is nothing new in Washington, D.C. Kennedy, Clinton, list goes on. And now a pope may be forced to resign in shame over the massive, horrific sex crimes that have been perpetuated within the Roman Catholic Church over the last 2 decades? Dear God. And the Blaze, they go on to say, Cardinal McCarrick had a long friendship with Cardinal Bergoglio, who was, that's Pope Francis's proper name, and played an important part in his recent election, according to Vigano, that led the Pope to continuing to use McCarrick as a trusted aide in naming bishops even after learning about his misdeeds. Vigano alleges that he informed the Pope of McCarrick's abuses on June 23, 2013, but Francis, quote, continued to cover for him. Side note, I grew up in Central Jersey, and I actually know a bunch of people who went to Cardinal McCarrick High School. Think about that. Guy accused of abusing dozens and dozens of children. High school named after him. Yeah, makes you think. Vigano claims Pope Francis only took actions against Cardinal McCarrick when he was forced to do so by public reports of the Cardinal's abuse of a minor. He also believes he did so to, quote, save his image in the media. Vigano concludes his report by calling the Pope evil. Evil. He says, and I quote, I want to recall this indefectible truth of the Church's holiness to the many people who have been so deeply scandalized by the abominable and sacrilegious behavior of the former Archbishop of Washington, Theodore McCarrick, by the grave, disconcerting, and sinful conduct of Pope Francis, and by the conspiracy of silence of so many pastors who are tempted to abandon the Church disfigured by so many ignominies, he said. Good Lord. He continued, we need to intervene where evil is spreading, for evil spreads where daring Christians who oppose evil with good are lacking. If this is rightly to be considered a serious moral responsibility for every believer, how much graver is it for the Church's supreme pastor, who in the case of McCarrick, not only did he not oppose evil, but he associated himself with evil, and with someone he knew to be deeply corrupt. He followed the advice of someone he knew well to be a pervert, thus multiplying exponentially with his supreme authority the evil done by McCarrick. How many other evil pastors is Francis still continuing to prop up in their active destruction of the Church? Vigano also called for the Pope himself and anyone else involved in the cover-ups to resign. Now, without getting too vulgar here, as I've got like a minute left, I want to just point out that at any other time in history prior to like the 1900s, this guy be dead. He dead, son. He be dead. They would kill him. He needs security on him 24 hours a day now. If he hasn't got it, he better get it. He would be dead at any other point in history. To call a sitting pope evil and to demand their resignation at any other point in human history is putting a bullseye between your eyes. This man truly needs to be lauded for his supreme bravery, for his incredible courage. So, in your prayers tonight, if you're Catholic or not, say a prayer for Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano. Say a prayer for him, because he needs all the sincere protection, spiritually and physically, that we can muster. This guy, he's got a set of stones on him. And I'll leave you with that on this Sunday, August the 26th, in the year of our Lord 2018. Good night. God bless you. God bless Cardinal Vigano, Bishop Vigano, rather. And God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, I'm out.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.